Yep.
We're going to go ahead and get started, even though everybody's not here, because I've got a long thing I have to read, and they have heard it before. So I'm going to go ahead and start reading, so we'll kind of knock some time off the clock. So thank you for staying. It looks like we have a nice crowd. We're now up to 9.0, which is citizens' participation. And the Lexington County School District 1 Board of Trustees provides a time for citizens' participation at each regular board meeting. There are a few guidelines, of course. First, in order to speak, you must be a parent or legal guardian of a student in Lexington County School District 1 or a resident and taxpayer of the district. Second, each speaker has 3 minutes to speak. Third, you may comment on an agenda item, school operations, programs, policies, or other matters of concerns. However, you may not speak about specific individuals, whether students or staff. There are other ways to bring situations like that to the board's attention. We want to give everyone who came here tonight a chance to speak. For that reason, board members will not reply to an individual's remarks. This is your time for you to talk to us. And if someone makes the point or points you came to make before you, if you could just state that you agree with the previous speakers and not restate every point, that would actually help us. We also ask that you not clap or make any comments either while an individual is speaking or after a speaker finishes, as that slows down the process. If you wanted to speak tonight, we ask that you fill out a card that will give us your name and address for our records. Those cards were on the sign-in table, and I have received one. Is there anyone else that would like to speak besides the one person on this card? If so, we'll be glad to give you a card. And let's see, so no one's going to speak. So as stated earlier, you should not expect us to reply to your remarks. Although we may ask you a question, as a board, we will not take any action tonight in response to issues that you raise during citizens' participation. So at this time, I'd like to welcome Dr. Billy Michaud. He's going to discuss the topic of tutoring. He lives at 158 Mansfield Circle in Lexington, and he is a grandfather of students at Oak Grove Elementary, or a student, one student. So welcome, Dr. Michaud. Come on up.
Policy currently states that a teacher may tutor any student after school for pay if that student is not in her own or his own classroom. This policy deprives some of the most vulnerable students of the help that they can get most easily because of the rapport that they have built with their own teachers. Some of these teachers do not establish rapport easily, and once they're established with a teacher, it's very hard for them to move on. It also conveys a message of distrust to the teachers in your district when you tell them that they cannot do that for the reasons that I'm going to say later. The policy statement says that these restrictions are to assure that all students receive reasonable assistance without a fee, and that a teacher is not put into a position where he or she might have a conflict of interest. I understand both of those concerns, but a blanket sweeping policy to address two unlikely occurrences seems rather extreme to me. First of all, no one understands a teacher's needs as clearly as a student's needs as clearly as his teacher. Another teacher would be sure that he is teaching the correct subject matter only if he or she is in touch with the current teacher. This constant interaction would put both unnecessary work on both teachers. And if a child's educational welfare is the department's major concern, then the district should do nothing to hamper that achievement. I do not know if the current policy was put in place because of an incident that might have occurred or because the board is being overly cautious. In either case, to institute a policy based on one incident or out of fear that teachers cannot act professionally shows a lack of trust in a cadre of teachers that hired to teach our children and grandchildren. If you entrust our kids to them, then you should trust them also. I would respectfully ask that you reconsider this policy, knowing that any incident can be dealt with individually, and showing that the board has faith in the Lexington I faculty to ask with fairness and impartiality. I would also ask respectfully that a teacher who is not tutoring because he or she was not aware of this policy not be forced to drop his or her students in mid-quarter until a replacement can be found or until the policy is reconsidered. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Michoud. I think if the board's okay with this, Dr. Talley is our Chief Instructional Officer. Dr. Talley's sitting right there with the black dress on. We're going to ask her to look into this policy and into your suggestions and report back to the board. Dr. Talley, would you mind doing that, please? Okay, thank you. And thank you for bringing that to our attention. Okay. At this time, we're going to move to item 10.0, which are action items, and we will be taking votes. The first one is the adoption of the South Carolina School Board member ethical principles. And let's see, I had a copy right here. The South Carolina School Board Association has a code of conduct for the ethics across the state, and they ask that all school board members read through it and sign on to it and adopt that as part of their principles in governing serving as a governor on the school board. So board members, SCSBA has asked boards across the state to adopt the following ethical principles. We always have. Do I hear a motion to adopt the SCSBA school board member ethical principles as presented?
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt the South Carolina School Board Association's South Carolina Board Members Code of Ethics as presented.
Thank you, Dr. Powers. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Board members, is there any questions, comments, or discussion regarding the Code of Ethics before we take a vote? Okay, hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor of adopting the SCSBA School Board Member Ethical Principles as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries and it is unanimous. And at this time, I'm going to ask our secretary if he will give us instructions for signing it.
So each of you have a copy in front of you just for your reference, but we have it behind us, and we as board members will sign this, and it will sit in our boardroom in perpetuity.
We need to take a picture, so we need you to pass it up and down now.
Okay.
We take a group photo for the School Boards Association after we
Okay,
sign it.
we can do that.
So we need to sign it and pass it up, down now, and then we'll take a picture.
Thank you, Dr. Powers. You are such a good board secretary.
Thank you.
Ms. Smith, while Dr. Powers is signing and getting us organized, I was at the State House today during the School Board Association's press conference, just recognizing School Board Appreciation Month, and Senator Greg Hembry of Horry County, who is the chair of the Senate Education Committee now, commended South Carolina school boards across the state for adopting these ethical principles since 1986. I mean, he actually mentioned that he thinks these came about in response to lost trust, which he thought was funny because lost trust was about the legislature, but the school boards acted just to affirm that we do adhere to ethical principles and that we do that statewide. So,
Well, thank you, Ms. Green. That's good to know, and I can assure everyone this board takes the ethics of this board seriously, and we do everything within our power to maintain the laws of South Carolina and the laws of the United States, because those laws protect our students, and that's what we're here. We're here to protect our students. So thank you for that. Board, items 10.2 are the student travel request as presented by Dr. Talley. We'll get the motion on the floor, and then we'll open it up for discussion and let Dr. Talley update us on anything we may need to know. Do I hear a motion to approve 21 student travel requests as presented?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve 21 student travel requests as recommended by administration.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Green. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Powers. Are there any questions, comments, or discussions regarding those 21 student travel requests? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor of approving the 21 student travel request, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries and it is unanimous. But board, in front of you, you have the second reading. As you remember last month, we presented policy IHBA, the special education programs for handicapped and disabled students, and Dr. Talley presented that to us. I'm going to go ahead and get the motion on the floor, and then we will discuss this, and then we'll take a vote. Do I hear a motion to approve policy IHBA, special education programs for handicapped disabled students for second reading?
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt, this doesn't make any sense. Okay, please find that for the second reading, revision of policy IHBA, special education programs for handicapped disabled students. I move that the board approve policy IHBA, special education programs for handicapped disabled students. I think that first sentence was extra. So I move that we adopt policy IHBA as presented.
Right, and it is an amended policy, so I think that's what they were stating, that we are amending that, the original policy. So board, we have a motion on the floor from Ms. Green. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. I now have a discussion. Are there any questions or comments regarding policy IHBA for special education programs? Okay, hearing none. Did you have something, Dr. Guyton?
I did have one question, just for a point of clarity. If there is a certificate of appointment for guardianship that is upheld by the probate court, does that student then have to go through this same process, or does that guardianship, I guess, supersede this policy? Does that make sense?
I'm not sure I understand your question. The policy would not be superseded by guardianship. We have to abide by the policy. Is that what you're asking?
I guess my question would be, do they have to go through this process if guardianship through the probate court has already been established?
I'm looking in the audience, Dr. Balo, if I may defer to our Director of Special Ed, she can probably answer that better than I can.
I assume you're talking about the process of special education?
I guess in any aspect of guardianship, be it education, healthcare, whatever it may be.
Under the state guidelines for special education, that if they have legal guardianship, that person is identified as the parent and has the rights of the parent under IDEA.
Okay. Yeah, that helps.
Okay. Any other questions, board? Good point, Dr. Guyton. Thank you. And since we now have a motion and a second on the floor, we'll take a vote. All in favor of adopting this amended policy, IHBA, special education programs for handicapped disabled students, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries and it is unanimous. We are now going on to second reading of policy IKFC and IKFC-R, employability credentials. This is once again presented by Dr. Talley. We're going to go ahead and get a motion on the floor, and then if we have any questions or comments, we'll open up the floor. Do I hear a motion to approve policy IKFC and IKFC-R, employability credential for second reading?
Madam Chair, in each of our packets is policy IKFC employability credential and administrative rule IKFC-R employability credential. I move that the board approve policy IKFC employability credential and administrative rule IKFC-R employability credential.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor from Dr. Powers. Do I have a second? Okay, we now have a second from Ms. Green. Are there any questions or comments or anything you need to update us on, Dr. Talley? Anybody?
I would just make a point to the board that the former policy that you just acted on was amended. It was recodified because of new legislation. This policy is a brand-new policy for us. It's based on the employability credential legislation, and that's what it speaks to. The administrative rule, in other words, it gives a pathway for students with disabilities who are not going to earn a diploma, high school diploma. It also outlines in the administrative rule, which we're required to do, the pathway, meaning the credits, the courses that a student who's seeking this employability credential would achieve upon matriculating from high school.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments for Dr. Talley or Dr. Balo?
I was just going to make a comment. So this, this policy addition is in response to legislation that was passed last, I believe, about a year ago, right?
That's right, not quite a year ago, that's
When
right.
I was preparing for the legislative report, I was reading through bills that have been filed this year, and a legislator has filed, several actually, has sponsored a bill to require an employment certificate for this exact thing that has already been passed, which was kind of interesting that they have proposed something that actually is already a law.
If I could take a point of personal privilege and give a lot of credit to Dr. Balo and her team. They worked really hard and were very excited about this legislation, put a lot of thought into this, and if I could say, I feel like Lexington One is a leader in this particular area.
That's great.
A question and I guess an educational moment for myself. Number one, do the students remain at their home school throughout? I mean, this does not apply to certain schools or anything like that. If this were a student of Lexington High School, the student stays at Lexington High School, is that, or?
They would stay at their school. What it would require us to do is, and we've already begun working on that, is finding placements for them that meets the criteria of the law where they could get experience in a work setting.
And that was actually the educational point I was hoping for. So we have resources available within the school to reach out to the community for employability and those kind of things?
I'm smiling at Dr. Balo because she came into my office last Friday very excited. She had just met, I think getting coffee maybe, or in a restaurant, a person who's just opened an ice cream smoothie business, and she happens to be a former director of special ed. And so they chatted, and she gave Dr. Baylor her card, and she can't wait to hire some of our students to work in her business.
Thank you, Dr. Talley.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions or comments, board? Okay, hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries and it is unanimous.